Hi, it's Todd of Todd's Workshop here, and today we're going to look at crossbow sights. There's not that much to say because they weren't really that common in the medieval period. They started to really come in around about 1500, so around the time of the Renaissance, really. I suspect that what that was all about was militarily, they didn't seem to be that important because they didn't have them. They would have invented them if they wanted them, if there was a need. So really they obviously came in more as the crossbows started to die out militarily, and they came in as hunting weapons. My personal theory is that it's more about prestige. It's just that what you want is you want the crossbow with all of the added extras on, just like you get a BMW now with metallic paint and the extra large wheels and the this, that and the other, because you're showing off, right? You're showing off how much money you've got, how much good taste you've got, how good your craftsmen are. And, you know, sights are just part of that because they used to be really beautiful little things often. We're going to start by looking at a medieval bow. This one is a sort of fairly plain munition grade, as I'd call it, 15th century bow. Nothing really has very much changed. All through the 14th century, 15th century, they're pretty much standard things. Yes, you get composite versions, this one's steel, but the bow stock itself, nothing sophisticated about it. Very simple single axle trigger and a stock, a piece of wood at the back. Not shaped like a gun stock, nothing very exciting going on here. But what you sometimes got on the top were some depressions in the top of the stock, and they could locate your thumb. Now what you want with a sight is you want two positions which are fixed, so a foresight and a rear sight. One of those positions, or the rear sight, can be effectively your eyeball, as long as your eye rests in the same place on the stock of the gun or the crossbow each time. Now what you can do is this knuckle on your thumb here, you can raise it in a slightly awkward way, but as long as you are doing it the same each time, you can slide that up and down the stock, and you can locate the tip of your thumb into a depression here, or a depression here, or a depression here, and that gives you sight ranges. It gives you sight ranges because your knuckle becomes the rear sight of the bow. The foresight is the bolt tip, the head of the bolt. So what you end up doing is you can get different elevations by lining up the tip of your bolt and the top of your knuckle. And so just having those, it doesn't work for great distances, but at 20, 30, maybe even 50 or 60 yards, it's going to work. But anything beyond really about 50 paces, that system doesn't work anymore. So that's like the early way of doing it. Around about 1500, they decided that they did want something else. And so we end up with sights like this. Now, this is on a crossbow. We end up with a rear sight on stone bows as well. And stone bows seem to have got to sights a little bit before crossbows. So in the mid to late 15th century, stone bows came in. I've got a good video on those. They are used for shooting small game. And you end up with a rear peep sight, much like that. But you also have a foresight, which this doesn't have. And the foresight on a stone bow was like a pair of goalposts for rugby if you're UK or European, or goalposts for American football if you're US. And it's like a couple of posts that come up here, a couple of fingers, excuse me, with a string tied between the fingers, with a bead on it or a little knot, and you can slide that left and right, and that gives you your side to side, and you can move it up and down the pegs for the elevation. And then the rear sight is something much like this, or it might be a simple plate with holes in it. And that's how the rear sight on a stone bow worked. Comes in a little bit before crossbows. Crossbows then presumably went, hey, I like that stuff on stone bows, let's do it on crossbows. So you've just got a rear sight here, and the position of your cheek here, that sets it. I guess you could do the same, that you line up the rear sight with the bolt head. I don't know that for sure. It's a fold-away one. That means it's good for storage, but also it means you get a little bit of extra elevation by how you set the angle on it, but let's just say that it's set vertically. So on the rear sight here, you've just got a little clamping plate with two screws. I'll zoom in so you can see this. And then a tiny, tiny little plate. And that tiny, tiny little plate has got a notch cut in the top, but the clamping screws, they allow you to move it side to side and up and down. So it is very crude compared to modern sights, you know, where you've got screws for windage and elevation. They didn't do that, not at this period. So you just got that plate, it just simply slips in, you set it to where you want it, and then you just do up the screws. It is very unsophisticated, but it allows you something that they hadn't had before, which is both windage and elevation. And that is not something that they did before. And so there we are. And then we just fold it away for storage. Simple as that.